Hi first graders, welcome to the Wild Critters Station. If you were here in person, we would share with you some special critters so you can see them up close and personal. I have assistants here. This is my son Michael, you might know him, and this is his sister Michaela.
Hi.
So some of the animals you might see in nature, especially on the nature trail, are reptiles and amphibians. Mammals are sometimes difficult to see because they run away, they hear us. So they can be difficult to see. That's why we look for their signs. But some of the fun things you can see is turtles or frogs or salamanders. Salamanders and frogs are what we call amphibians. Okay, so I'm going to start today by sharing with you one reptile friend that we brought with us today, and this is a spotted turtle. Okay, this is a very special turtle. And it wasn't found here in the nature trail, but it was found by the State Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. And it was given to us for educational programs. We actually keep this at home, and then we share it on special days like today. What's really great about this reptile and the spotted turtle, can you see where it gets its name? Look at all the yellow spots. And I'm going to do something that makes us stand out a little bit more. So realize it dried off a little bit. He's not used to getting too dried out because they like to actually live in water. This is what we call a partially aquatic turtle. They can live on the land or in water. They're special turtles because they like wetlands. They like bogs and swamps and wetlands. You can find them in the southeast and the extreme northwest and southwest of Pennsylvania. They don't actually live in the Alleghenies part of Pennsylvania, Allegheny Mountains. They mostly live in just different sections of Pennsylvania. This is a special turtle because this turtle actually is a species of concern. We're concerned about its numbers. It's losing its habitat, so it's having a hard time finding habitat. The other thing that's happening with this turtle is, this is an adult turtle. And this turtle is about 4 inches long, and that's as big as they'll get. They don't grow any larger, and so they're a relatively small turtle. What's happening is people think this turtle is really cool. So they're actually taking it out of nature and keeping it as pets. But you're not allowed to have this turtle in captivity. It's not allowed. Right now, we are allowed by the state to use it for this program. But otherwise, you're not allowed to have it in captivity. You see all the great yellow spots? I want you to look closely. This is a carapace. One of these areas here is a carapace. And in each carapace, you'll see yellow spots. The more yellow spots you have in a carapace, the older the turtle is. I actually have another spotted turtle at home who's very young, and he only has one yellow spot in each carapace, so he's a very young turtle. This one is an older turtle. Also, I can tell something about this turtle. A lot of times turtles, you can tell whether it's a boy or a girl turtle by looking at its characteristic. I'm going to show you one characteristic of turtles that usually applies to all turtles. So on the bottom of the shell, you'll see, if you feel the bottom of the shell, it's actually got a little curve in it, or a dent. We call it concave. So it actually has an indentation in it. Boy turtles actually have an indentation in the bottom of their shell. If this was a female or a girl turtle, it would be very flat underneath. The other thing in this turtle, you can tell that it's a boy because it largely has brownish eyes, red brownish eyes. Same with box turtles. Box turtles, the male box turtle has red eyes. This one also has a characteristic where the chin is actually brown or a dark color. In females, their chin would be yellow. There's actually another characteristic about this turtle where you can tell it's a male. They have a very thick tail. So that is a male, and it's shedding right now. The reason why its shell looks like this is turtles do shed like snakes. So they shed differently though. Each of these scales will shed off as it gets older and it grows. So this turtle, okay, is very special, and it's hard to find in nature, so we're glad to be able to bring it here today. Okay? Turtles I'll tell you a little thing about turtles while we're looking at this. This is a semi-aquatic turtle. You'll notice that when it's not very scared of us because it's used to being handled right now, but if I were to scare it and it would go into its shell, it can't go in completely. It can't close its shell completely. Most water turtles don't do that, and you'll notice that different than a box turtle, it's very streamlined. It doesn't have a high shell, okay? So that's so it can swim in the water very easily. Most land turtles or tortoises will have higher shells, okay? So this is a semi-aquatic turtle. It likes to be in the water, it likes shallow water, and it's just a very special turtle. Now this is a turtle that you can handle and look at, but I do want to tell you that turtles actually carry a bacteria that can be harmful for people. So in the wild, when you handle a turtle, you have to remember to always wash your hands after handling a turtle. Okay, that's the only reptile we have here today. Snakes, I just want to let you know that snakes are super special. Some of you might like snakes, others might not like snakes, but they're super important for the environment and nature. So I just want to tell you with snakes, you can enjoy them from a distance, watching them from a distance, and don't be afraid of them. They actually feel with their whole body, so they will know when you're in nature, and they usually leave. So we're going to look at some frogs now, and I'm actually going to share with you several different types of frogs that I have here today. First, I'm going to show you a frog that I actually have from home, and this frog is actually a bullfrog. It's one of our largest frogs in Pennsylvania. This one isn't quite as big, but it's getting bigger, and right now its color has changed actually. And this morning it was more green, but now that it's been in this water today, it's actually, the skin color has changed a bit, where it's now brownish. So I'm going to talk about frogs. When I hold a frog, I always hold it by its hind legs. If you look at these legs, they're designed to be able to jump very far. This is an aquatic frog, and aquatic frogs are designed to jump very, very far. So they actually have special designed legs that actually have an extra joint in them so they can leap far. Bullfrogs like to live in ponds and not necessarily shallow bodies of water, but they like to live in ponds and lakes where there's a huge body of water. As you notice on the frog, I want to point out one thing. So frogs have very special eyes. They don't have any eyelids, and they do have nostrils. Frogs do have lungs, so they do breathe through their nostrils into their lungs, especially when they're on land. And they also can breathe through their skin. So if they don't have to use their lungs, like when they're hibernating or they're in the pond, they can just breathe through their skin. They also have ears. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you see this right here, that's their eardrum. That's called a tympanum, and that's actually how they hear. The other cool things about frogs is they have vocal cords, so they make sounds. So this particular frog, you might hear it in nature, it sounds like chug-a-rum, chug-a-rum. Very deep, chug-a-rum, chug-a-rum, okay? We actually hear this frog call in our house a lot because this frog is also a male. This is a boy frog, and boy frogs are the ones that actually call and communicate. Girl frogs don't communicate. Very rarely if they do. It's mostly all boy frogs. So when you hear frogs calling in nature, that's what you hear. This one's very used to being handled, except for today, he's just camera shy. Here is our second frog for today, and this frog looks very similar to the frog I had out earlier. They are sometimes confused. This frog is actually a green frog, and a green frog is very different, and I'm going to show you a difference. So the frog we had before, if you see these, there's called dorsolateral folds. You'll see them go ridges, dorsolateral ridges. They go down their body. You can see this one, it goes straight back and straight back. For the bullfrog that I had out, there'll be no dorsolateral ridge here. Their ridge will go from here and then down past their tympanum. So you can see the green frog's ridge goes about halfway back the body. I do want to point out, I didn't point this out earlier, but it's very important when you touch frogs that your hands are completely clean. Remember, they breathe through their skin like salamanders, and because they breathe through their skin, anything that touches them will be absorbed into their skin. This is why frogs and salamanders don't handle pollution well, okay? Because it absorbs right into their skin. This one came from here on the nature trail, and you can see the green color. And so that's where they get their name, green frog. They also have an eardrum like the bullfrog, the tympanum, and that is, you'll see, is quite large like the bullfrog. That's why they're easily confused. These, like the vernal ponds that are here in the nature trail, this is where they breed, they lay their eggs. Here is a third frog. This is the same frog as I showed you earlier, which is a green frog. It's just a younger one. But you can see by looking at it, you can still identify it by those dorsolateral ridges that go back the length of its body. And you can see the green on his nose. And sometimes frogs do change color depending on the habitat they live in. Why do you think that is, first graders? Michaela, Michael, why do you think they might change colors, or their color might be different depending on where they live? We've talked about this at home. Is it called adaptation?
Oh yeah, adaptation.
Yes, and sometimes they do that to camouflage, right? Camouflage in nature. And then last, but definitely not least, and we hope that I don't lose this one because their frogs are very quick, and we found this one today. This is a special frog that we found today. There's also a cool centipede in here. Oh, and I want to show you this frog when it's in with leaves. Can you see it, boys and girls? Can you see it? So there's the frog there, but when it's on leaves, right? It's hard to see. What's that called, Michael?
Wood frog.
This is called a wood frog. But what happens when it blends into nature?
It camouflages.
Yeah, so it's camouflage. This is a frog that lives in the woods. Now, this is an aquatic frog too. And like I said, this one is very hard to get. And once I get it, I don't want to lose it. So you can all see it up close. But it's very, oh, this one's going to talk. So it's very important that you hold them with their back legs. It looks like I'm hurting it, but I'm not. I'm keeping it from falling far to the ground and getting hurt. So I'm just holding on to its legs enough that it can't jump away. It's very slippery. So this is a wood frog. This is a very special frog that lives in Pennsylvania. It's a frog that you can hear first thing in the spring. Now, all frogs, I said, have vocal cords. There's also something special about frogs, and that is that they all have their different songs that they sing. And you can identify a frog by its call. So I talked about how the bullfrog sounds like chug-a-rum. And I didn't talk about the green frog. The green frog actually has a song that sounds like a banjo, a strumming a banjo. Okay? And this one, I believe, is the one that sounds like a duck. So you'll see how special this is. If you look closely, you can identify this frog from the dark mask that it has around its eye. It also has a very light yellowish strip that goes down underneath its eye. You can also see the dorsolateral ridges that go the length of its body. We talked about those earlier. So first graders, I know that you've probably been out exploring and you look under logs, which is really fun to do. Maybe in your discovery, you came across this really cool insect, and it is an insect. This is a millipede. This is a fairly large millipede, and the cool thing is, if you let it walk, you can see all the legs, and millipedes are a little different than centipedes in that they have, for every segment of their body, and you can see up close, they have a segment here. For each segment, I think they have 4 legs per segment, 2 on each side. That's what makes it a millipede. Now, there's one thing I need to tell you about millipedes. Millipedes, when you hold millipedes, they actually release a smell and a toxin. Because why do you think they do that? Because they don't want to be eaten. That's right. So if they don't want to be eaten, they're going to have an adaptation that protects them from being eaten. So one thing about millipedes is when you pick them up in nature, you might smell that smell or the toxin. So that's very important that you do wash your hands after touching them and be careful about touching them because it might irritate your skin. But I want to encourage you, when you look under rocks and logs, especially logs, they really love old rotten logs. So I want to encourage you, if you do look for things under logs, always put the log back the way you found it. Because remember, that's where animals live. And you can see it's actually emitting something here. So that will happen. Now remember, these animals have to try to survive in nature. So they may have special adaptations to do so. And it curls up too to protect its leg and its body, and it has a hard shell. But these are super cool to find when you're in nature, but put them back in their homes and always put the habitat back like you found it. So first graders, I talked about how there's a millipede and a centipede, and it often has to do with the legs, how many legs they have for each segment of their body. Centipedes usually only have 2 legs per segment of their body, and you can see the millipedes have way more legs than the centipede. Okay? And you can see that the millipede's really not happy with me. So this is the stuff that he excretes for me to let him down. He's trying to protect himself. These are insects that help break down rotting logs, turns them into soil, and so they're very important for nature. And sometimes you find them in your house, so you want to put them back in nature where they belong. Well, first graders, it was wonderful having you at the Wild Critter Station. I really enjoyed you coming with us today. I do want to tell you, I want to encourage you to go out and explore. I'm going to be sending activities for you to do. So I encourage you to discover nature in your backyard. If you are looking for nature, say you have some rotting logs and some habitat you want to explore, please make sure when you look under a log or a rock, you put it back. Remember, animals live there, that's their homes, and you don't want to disturb it. You can observe, but make sure that you always put things back the way they were when you came, okay? So, go out, explore, have fun, and I look forward to being in touch later.